I'm Mike Hannewald, field agronomist with Beck's Hybrids, and out here in a wheat field today, it's getting to be that time of year at mid-March when we want to start thinking about what we're going to do to manage our wheat here this spring. So the first thing to do is to assess what you have. So you can see here the wheat has started to green up as we've had some warmer temperatures. It takes 2 weeks of 40 degrees to break dormancy, and we're getting to about that point. Now, the best thing to do is to come out and take some time to do some tiller counts. I know it can be a little tedious, but it's worth the effort. So in a 7.5-inch row, you're going to measure out 19.2 inches. And so you can see we've got that measured out. That's equal to 1 square foot. And I found that just measuring the length of the rows, one of the easier ways to do it. And so if you've got different row spacings, you can look on your screen now and you'll see what those are for some wider row spacings as far as how long you need to measure to get that 1 square foot. But we're ultimately looking for 70 to 100 tillers per square foot. And so in this particular field where we're at, we've got a good stand of wheat. It was planted timely in the fall. I was planted at a good depth, and we've got good establishment. So we're right at 101 tillers, so about perfect in this field. Now, what that number tells you is that's going to help you guide your nitrogen decisions. If you are at or above that 70 to 100 tiller range, you don't need to be in a big hurry to put your nitrogen on in the spring, because the wheat has sufficient tiller counts as it is. Our fall tillers are always going to produce the highest yield potential. Now, if you're well below that 70 to 100 range, you might think about getting out here fairly soon and adding some of your nitrogen, about a third of your total N, to get some N out there and get it started to help stimulate those tillers. But in this particular field, we've got some time yet to get that nitrogen up. The wheat's not going to use very much nitrogen at all in these very early growth stages. So the range that we're looking at for nitrogen applications range between Feeks 3 and Feeks 5. So wheat, as it goes into dormancy, is about usually between Feeks 2 and Feeks 3. You can see the chart on your screen that shows that. And so Feeks 3 is when we start to see those tillers have finished forming and those tillers are established. And then we have until the end of Feeks 5 to get our nitrogen on. And that's going to be about a month from now. We've got plenty of time yet before that happens. So Feeks 6 is when your first joint appears. That's that node that shows up in the stem, that bump in the stem. When that shows up, we want to have all of our nitrogen done at that point by that Feeks 6 growth stage. And so if you're in a situation where you've got good tiller counts and you still want to split your application, put a third of it on after that wheat has fully greened up and started to grow a little bit, and then come back at Feeks 5 and add your second shot of 2/3. Or if you're going to do a single pass program, just make that single pass prior to that Feeks 6 growth stage. My preference would be when you start to see some vertical growth to that wheat is going to be the ideal time. Feeks 6, the reason we want it all done by then is that's the start of the rapid growth phase in wheat. And just like our corn crop, where corn goes through that rapid growth phase in June and early July, where it needs a lot of nitrogen in a hurry, wheat's going to do the same thing, and that starts shortly after that Feeks 6 growth stage. Now, just like corn, we also recommend running some sulfur with that nitrogen, and I usually like to see a 10-to-1 ratio. For every 10 pounds of nitrogen you're putting on, add 1 pound of sulfur. And if you run that same ratio in both applications, if you're going to do a dual application. Now, while you're out in the field, take a look and look for some weeds. Just like we do in our corn and beans, it's important to manage weeds in our wheat crop. And you can see them out here. There's some chickweed and some purple dead nettle starting to show up in some places here in this wheat field. You'll also want to watch for some mare's tail that might show up as well, some of those winter annuals. So if you see those, then I would look at making a herbicide application. Now the challenge is that when you're applying your nitrogen, we usually like to see stream nozzles or a stream bar nozzle, so that you're not getting direct contact of that nitrogen to the leaves of the wheat plant. That reduces the burning of the wheat. However, that's not going to give you good contact for your herbicide. So if you need a herbicide, I really like to see it in 2 separate applications. Harmony Extra is probably the most popular one that you hear about, but there are several other options as well. Now, if you're going to make that herbicide pass, I would encourage you to also consider using a product called Palisade. We've seen pretty good results from that in PFR. We've got 3 years of testing, and you can see the results there on your screen. We're showing about a $15 per acre advantage after paying for the cost of the product for that return on investment. And what Palisade does is a growth regulator. It'll help shorten that weed up a little bit, and so that wheat's putting less energy towards vegetative growth, towards the straw, and it allows more energy to go towards the head and filling grain. Especially if you're running high nitrogen rates, I would recommend that Palisade to help shorten that weed up. It helps improve your standability and then also can improve your yield, and it's got the TFR proven to back it up. The one caution I'll give is that if you're growing wheat for the primary purpose of a straw crop, you might rethink that just because that will potentially reduce your straw yield. So if you have any questions about these or any other agronomic topics, whether it's related to wheat or getting ready for corn and soybean planting coming up soon, feel free to reach out to myself or your local Beck's representative, and we'd be happy to help.